Welcome back to Release Your Inner Power podcast. I have a lovely friend that is part of my sisterhood that I get to share today. Her name is Maria. Welcome, Maria.
Oh, thank you, Shorta. So good to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited to share your story. I think it's wonderful, and I can't wait to share it with everybody. Let's start in the beginning of your momhood. Let's start with your story on how you became a mama.
Yeah, okay. Um, yeah, so I'm Maria, and I'm from New Zealand, just so you get the context for the accent and where I'm talking about different places. Um, my husband and I lived in London for about 8 years or so. I was teaching over there, and he was doing all sorts of jobs, and we were living the London life and having, great time. The main reason being there for traveling. So we pretty much traveled the world with our little backpacks and on our adventures. So it was amazing. But I worked in all different types of schools in London, from uh, yeah, the real low demographic kids in estate buildings, seeing things that kids should not see every day, and coming to school on a Monday with some pretty horrific stories from that. And then I was working in private schools as well, top schools in London. And at the end of the day, kids are kids. They have the same needs of um, needing to feel safe and needing to be loved and to be um, have the opportunity to be who they are, express themselves. And I could see in all aspects of the tangent, if you like, that the kids' needs weren't always being met. And so I knew that one day I'd probably want to have kids of my own, but I was great with kids, loved them. I'd been babysitting since I was probably 12. Like and people just assume that, oh, you'll be a great mum one day, and, all of that. And I thought, oh, yeah. Well, I guess there's this thing called a maternal clock, and it will just start ticking loudly, or something will happen, and I'll just want to have kids or something, because that wasn't really happening. But when we were over there, I did have that knowing of, I want to have kids back in New Zealand, because I didn't want to bring them into the London world. I just wanted to be closer to family and have a bit more space and grass. Grass would be good. So, and those sorts of things. Anyway, we went back to New Zealand, and in that time we're like, oh my God, it's too small, it's too little, it's too everything. So then we were traveling again, and we ended up in Nepal in India, and we did a couple of months through there. And it was when I was we did this big hike, 21-day trek called the Annapurna Circuit on the Himalayas, and pretty grueling, but pretty incredible. And it was when I was on this hike, torture, whatever you want to call it, I had this really, it's like the higher I went and the cleaner and clearer the air, sometimes you couldn't even breathe, but I just had this real strong, what do you call it, desire to be pure and get rid of all of the crap out of my body. And not that I was healthy and I was fit, and I was always pretty mindful of what I ate, and I went to the gym and did yoga and da da da. But, you know, this the one thing I did take regularly for convenience was a contraceptive pill. And it didn't always sit well with me because I had a few problems with it, but I just didn't want the inconvenience of traveling and having to have your cycle. So I would just, mix it up so I didn't have to have that, and pretended it wasn't really there. So I ignored my dear old womb for quite some time. But I had this knowing of, nah, you got to get rid of it. You're stopping. And it's not because I didn't have the big TikTok, oh, this is my maternal clock. It wasn't that. It was just get rid of that from your body, and see where it goes. It was really quite profound and bizarre at the same time. I thought, interesting. So I said to my husband, and he's like, okay, all right, um, all good. So anyway, we finish the trip back to New Zealand, and so I went on that journey. And because of that, I didn't have regular cycles. My body was all up and down, and to be expected, I guess. And I was going in for regular checkups. And they said to me, when you decide to have kids, you're probably going to need help. You'll probably need IVF. They didn't really know. They actually don't know. But anyway, what was actually happening is my body was resetting itself after years of being on that pill, and it was purging the whatever and trying to recalibrate and work on its own naturally rather than by artificial things. So anyway, this one checkup I went in and she said, oh, we need to do a pregnancy test. And I said, oh, no, I'm not pregnant. I just need to have a whatever it was. And she said, oh, no, it's just standard procedure. We're just doing that now before each appointment. I'm like, okay. And then did the test. And another lady came back, and she was hard of English was her second language, so her English wasn't great. And she came in, she goes, oh, you are pregnant. And I said, oh, no, 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 I'm not pregnant. I just had to do a test. She goes, no, no, no. And she's pointing to this little thing. She goes, you, this big smile on her face, you are pregnant. And I said, I can't be. She said, mm-hmm. And my mind, I'm just reeling. So I'm like, that can't be. Can we do another one? So we did another one. And again, I had the two lines. I'm like, oh my God. And the other people are like, well, maybe you're just really, really early on. I thought, I haven't even had a cycle. Like, it's been, I didn't even know. I think I had a slight one at a month or so before. Anyway, she said, go and get a scan and just to get a date, see where we're at. And so I'm walking home, and I'm like, this can't be. This can't be. And I call my husband, and he's like, what? This can't be. This can't be. We're both in absolute shock. And then the day I had to have the scan was the day of his mum's birthday, and it's her first birthday since she'd passed away. So she'd passed away the previous Christmas day, and this was August. And so it was important that my husband was home, back in his hometown with his family, to be together. And I said, it's okay, you go, I'll be fine. It's just to get a date. So I go to the scan by myself, and I'm looking on the screen and I can't see anything. It's just a big, massive whatever. And I thought, okay, I've never had one of these before, so must be what it's like. And then I look at it, and then suddenly there's this movement, and these two big eyes are staring at me. They look like alien eyes. I'm like, what the hell is that? He said, well, that's your baby. I was like, the eye's so big. She said, how far along do you think you are? And I said, well, I don't know, like 4 weeks or something. She said, girl, you're not 4 or even 14 weeks. You're nearly 19 weeks pregnant. I was like, you're what? So I had this being living and growing inside me for 18 weeks, and I had no idea. And I just about died. So I was rattling off all this stuff. I was like, oh my God, I've been training really hard for this cycle ride, and I've been pushing myself physically, and I've been drinking wine and eating the cheese. She's
Yeah.
just laughing. Oh my God. It was crazy. I just thought of all of the things that I'd done that I shouldn't have done. And when I was training to be a teacher, there's lots of psychology stuff, and we learn a lot about fetal alcohol syndrome and all of the different things from drugs and alcohol and stuff. And that really stayed with me. And I just thought, oh, and I've worked with these kids. So not that I was an alcoholic or a drug user or anything like that when I was pregnant. That wasn't that at all. But I wanted to do it properly. In my head, I was like, when I become a mother, I'm going to do all the things, and whatever you're meant to do, I'm going to do it. I did none of it. So it was And because I was really fit and I was training for this big, um, huge bike ride, 160-kilometer thing race, I had abs for the first time in my life and the last time in my life as well, actually. But this baby was obviously in there. And I thought, how could I not know? So I battled and struggled with myself a lot because it wasn't how I thought it should, air quotes, look, and felt really guilty, so guilty. And it was hard to reconcile. But in that time, I'd actually taken three pregnancy tests, and they're all negative while he was there because I really just wanted to make sure, just in case, because you got no idea when you're not getting um, your cycle, you don't know. So, yep, three. He's so elusive, and he just managed to go under the radar for all of that time, and it's just crazy. I, it's really just crazy. But anyway, I embraced the pregnancy after a while. I mean, I was in such shock. And then I'd go into denial of like, no, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. No. Like, yeah, you kind of got to do this. I don't mean as in not like seriously not doing this, but I felt so scared basically. And we weren't prepared. We're kind of just coming out of backpacker mode, really. Like we had nothing. And it was a crazy time. And then when he was born, you want to hear that story too?
Yes.
he came, he basically came 2 weeks early. So we were back down at our family in our hometown, which is about 5 or 6 hours away from where we lived. We went down there because, like I said, my husband's mum passed away on Christmas Day. So we needed to be there for Christmas. Baby was due on the 10th of January. And the midwife said, yeah, you should be fine. First babies are more often later than earlier, but it's up to you. You have to make that call. Worst case scenario, you have the baby down there if um, he decides to come earlier. Nope, that's not happening. Anyway, I worked up into the day, finished work, we hop in the car and we drive to Foxton, our little hometown, with nothing's done. Nothing's organized for this baby. Nothing's set up. I hadn't nested, nothing, all of the things that you meant to do. So we went down there, did Christmas, and then after a couple of days, I was getting really, really tired. And I thought, I've just stopped work and I'm pregnant and it's hot, it's summer. You make excuses for it. And then one evening in the early hours, I thought these Braxton Hicks contractions are getting kind of a bit more intense, a bit more regular. And I thought, oh crap, am I actually in labor? Because like for your first time, you don't really know, but you don't know because it's a whole new feeling and you haven't experienced it before. So I'm in the bathroom and I'm in there for a few hours just trying to like, can't sleep. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to wake up the house. We're staying at my parents' place. Um, and then my husband came in and he said, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know. I think I might be in labor, but I'm not sure. And he said, Axel, who's our dog, he just came and basically dragged me into the bathroom because Axel was going between me and the bedroom and he was getting worried about me, obviously. I was fine, but he was, something's happening to my mum. And so
Yeah.
he even got my husband. And then I thought, I actually think I am. And I waited till about 5 in the morning because I didn't rang my midwife and I said, this is happening. I want to come home though. And she's like, okay. And I downplayed it. I said, they're not really that regular. They're kind of, and the contractions are, further apart than they actually were. And she said, oh, well, yeah, it might not even be labor. So it's up to you. You can drive home if you want to. And then my dad came down, mum and dad said, you are basically effing nuts because my mother had 4 children and they're all very quick labors. And he's like, you're going to have this baby on the side of the road. pack towels, basically. So I was like, no, no, I'm going. And so we just chuck everything in the car. Off we go. And it was the longest drive. I was actually okay because I was so focused on getting home. So I think it took us 5 hours or so. And I just kind of kept reclining the car seat backwards a little bit. And every time we went through a new town, you'd see the little white cross signs or indicating there's a medical center in that town. And he'd look at me and I'd look at him and I'm like, no, keep driving. I'm fine. Keep going. So we made it home and it was, I don't know what came over me because I just had this urge to, like, I kind of said to my son, just give me a little bit of time. I just need to do a few things. Basically, I'm having this internal conversation with this little person. And so kind of like he was, all right, then I'll give you a few hours. And in that time, I I was washing the sheets of the baby things and the baby clothes and packing my bag and um setting up a little bassinet thing which he'd never used anyway. But it's just like this crazy person. And my husband's kind of just there and like, are you like, are you all right? I'm like, yep, I'm good. And so he's just kind of giving me food. And then my midwife rings up and she said, what are you doing? Like, shouldn't you be home by now? And I said, yeah, I'm home. I'm just getting a few things ready. And she said, I think you should come in and let me see you. Because by then, this is well into the afternoon and I'd run here at 5. And so I'm laboring, but I don't know. I don't know if it was the combination of me having a mini connection with Jack, my son, and we're working together so I could be prepared, a little bit more prepared for him, or if I'm just so stubborn and determined that I push through and I don't know. Anyway, I get to the birthing center and she's like, oh my God, you're nearly fully dilated. And so within less than an hour of arriving at the birthing center, he was born. It's like, okay, you can come now. And he did. So it was just such an intense roller coaster ride of you're pregnant and then what does that mean and what do I do and how do I do it? And I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Okay, I've done it. But I think it's also with him, it wasn't like I was in awe of this little being, this little person that we'd created. I just couldn't, it's so hard to couldn't get my head around it. Like, oh my gosh. And I was checking him, making sure he's okay because, I'd been doing the bad things. Well, bad things, air quotes. Um, and he was okay. He was, he was, he was great. He was fine. And I think I was grateful and relieved that, at that point anyway, I couldn't see anything. I was just, I guess, paranoid from having a couple of glasses of wine and I go straight to catastrophizing. Oh my gosh, this potentially could happen, but which isn't a healthy place to put yourself into. But I think we do that sometimes when you're reeling over something and you really don't know what to do and who to turn to and who, where to get help. Um, and I was, people just assumed I was fine and had it all sorted because I'm great with kids. But hello, I've never been pregnant. I've never had a child of my own, a baby. I've not worked with babies. And, and I was older, well, not older, I was 34, I think. So you kind of, yeah, I truly do think people just thought, oh, yeah, she's got it sorted because I'm generally just have things sorted, and but it did take a little while to even find my way and rhythm with him. It wasn't easy. He didn't feed well. I had stitches. It was just like, I remember we got home and it was New Year's Eve and I'm sitting there with basically raw boobs out and um in pain. And I'm like, what just happened? Like we'd just come home that day and I've got this little baby, like, what just happened? What is happening? what do I do? Like, what is this? And I had this like, it was quite scary and daunting, and you pull yourself out of it, but it wasn't that easy. It's not always like fairy tale roses and everything all the time. And I think it's okay for people to know that there are moments when it doesn't feel good and it doesn't feel great. And there are times when you don't know what you're doing. Even people like me who you think know what they're doing, know what to do. We don't either. So, um, permission just to be you. And yeah, so it was a rocky road into motherhood, but I think probably having those experiences helped me have that desire to help other mums further down the track. There was that, you remember, you like I can tell the story and it's like it was yesterday. But those feelings were real, and they're fully in my body. So yeah, I really love working with mums now to try and support them, because I get it. I know. And you don't have to pretend, and you don't have to like, everything's fine, because sometimes it's fine and sometimes it's really not fine. And both are okay. Yeah.
So true. It's so true. I feel like your story is like it's the fast track to having a child. Like it's, like I can't imagine, because I feel like it's natural when you're pregnant to, when you get pregnant, you're like, oh, am I ready for this? Am I not? Like it's here. So you're like, am I ready? Am I not ready? I don't know. And then you kind of like go through that, but you have 40 weeks to go through that.
Yeah.
Your story, you're like finding out around 19 weeks. So you're already halfway, and then he's 2 weeks early. So you're like, I don't know, what are you looking at? Like 12, 13 weeks of being pregnant and like getting ready. And then, yes, this little person's coming, and just the whole mindset thing of you was so much faster. You didn't have as much time to like move through that. So, yeah, when he comes home and you're holding him and you're like, what just happened? It's kind of like a time warp. Like, yes, it's 3 months, but how fast does 3 months go by in our lifetime? It's like a blip. And for you to like find out you're pregnant, be pregnant, then you're having this journey home, and hopefully he's not going to come on the side of the road and we're just going to make it. And then you're like, okay, I have a couple more hours here. We had a little chat, so let's get some things done before we go and have him. Like it's just so it's amazing, and like it's like crazy beautiful. Like your story is just like, we're having this baby and yes, here he is. Oh, what?
Exactly it. Oh, it's, yeah. It's, but so with my daughter, it was the complete opposite, because she was planned, and I'm knowing from almost day dot, and it was the longest freaking pregnancy in the world, and she was late. And I'm like, what is this? Why do people do this? I used to having to be in that space for so long, and she was a week late, so like 41 weeks. I'm like, holy hecker. um so different. And with that one, I made sure I took the right pregnancy vitamins and supplements or whatever, and I was really mindful. The one thing though, in her pregnancy, I was working, and it was quite um, stressful. And Jack's pregnancy, it was a different type of stress, because I was like, oh, I'm pregnant. It was that energy, but it wasn't an intensity from work stress. And when I look back on it, I really do think like stress is massive for everybody, for all of us, and it
Mhm.
manifests and presents in different ways. But yeah, the stress I was experiencing in her pregnancy, because I was having to do a bit more management stuff, and it was just not, it wasn't, it wasn't fun. So when she was born, like everything was fine, but she then ended up with severe, severe eczema. So that's another story to talk about if you want to. But it's so I'd done all the right things. Is what I'm trying to say. I thought I'd done the things that so she would be this healthy, thriving baby. And she was thriving. She was a happy little girl, but she had this like terrible, terrible skin, really bad. So, and I was thought, and Jack, who I didn't necessarily follow all of the rules, and there's nothing wrong. He's fine. He's totally fine. So it's interesting. So the main thing there is the stress component. Perhaps I'm not sure, but it does is something to think about. Stress in pregnancy for mothers does affect and impact us more than maybe is talked about. And stress looks different and different. There's that good stress, um, but then there's that intensity when you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do here? That was happening more with Maya. And yeah, Jack's was different. So, and then you think of some women who go through their pregnancies in intense, really intense, stressful situations with whether it's abuse or their own safety or the safety of the baby, and huge. And I just goosebumps. You just want to wrap them up and like, how do you take that away from them? To support them more, because they're bringing that cortisol flowing through their body, their blood is what's going straight into the placenta and going into our little, or everything that we understand what we consume in terms of eating or even drinking or even drugs, that type of, medication. But it's not just that, it's also the mind and the emotions and that stress that comes in as well. So it's something that we need to, I don't know, really wrap up our pregnant mamas because we're in this basically pandemic of busyness, and we're just so busy. And I know it's the same in the States. You kind of need both parents working just to survive, to provide for your children. And it's not always easy to have one parent at home. And if you do, it's, you struggle a little bit, or you've got to miss out on certain things and really weigh it up. So this, I don't know, the busyness and the do, go, go, go. And I mean, for you guys, you have your maternity leave is far less than ours, I think.
Absolutely.
Our paid parental leave, I think it might have gone up. It was 16 weeks when I had my children, but I think it's 20 or 20 something now. You get a, a decent portion of your salary paid for that amount of time, so you can be at home. But oh, I don't know.
It's very different here as far as just because all the states have their own laws. In my state, when I had all of my children, I didn't get paid leave. So if I didn't have the amount of leave saved to be off, that's what I had to plan for each of my children. Since I've had my children, though, the law has changed and now you have 16 weeks paid. But before it was very different. So
Wow.
at least we have that now. It was not
Yeah.
available before, but it is available now. So there is change, but there is something to be said. You're absolutely right. I think it's harder for people to fully grasp it because like the stress and the mental aspect and the things and thoughts and feeling and all of the hormones and things that are released inside your body when you're pregnant with all of that, right? It's not tangible. And so it's harder for people to really fully grasp how that can affect, you and, you're growing a human. You're growing a human, and all of that is released in your body is shared with them. And so if you are stressed and if you're going through things and all of that, your baby is with that. It's like all encompassing. So I like how you said you just want to wrap it up and like take it away from them so they can have this easier and smoother, pregnancy to help grow this human, because it does make a difference. You may not know how it's going to come out until later at times, right? Like you said, your daughter was born and you're like, Is that a factor? It very well could be. And that's the thing, is how do you tangibly show that that is it? But your stories are very different. And there is something to be said about, paying attention to your environment around you definitely has an impact. It's not just the food and the, things that you consume. Those are tangible things, but there's also other things that have a huge factor in there that aren't talked about, I think, because it's just hard to see or connect the dots, if you will.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's right.
it's the same
You're
with
right.
recovering also too, after we have the baby, there's a lot of societal norm of, okay, you had the baby.
Mhm.
So, take a couple weeks and let's get back to busy and, whatever. And it's like, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
You just grew a human and had this baby, and then you can't just go back to normal. Like, it takes almost a full year for a mom to recover body hormones, like wise, alone from having a baby. Not to mention now you're raising a human, this
Mhm.
little peanut that you're raising, to make sure that they stay safe and that they get their, needs met as well while you're healing. And then you're supposed to like go back to work and go back to all the normal things. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's so it's just not sustainable, and it's not even normal, I think. We've made it normal. We've tried to normalize it,
Right.
but it's really, really not. I love it when you see in New Zealand with the Chinese people that live here, and when they have a child, the one of the grandparents that is still living in China will come over to New Zealand, and they stay for a good 3 months, and they are there just supporting, helping with the baby. Mother doesn't really come out a lot. She's really held and looked after, and that baby's looked after, and they don't take the baby straight to the supermarket when it's 5 days old. Um, they are so cherished, and they're like sacred, and they're treated like that way. And so they give that space for that little baby who's just come earthside, who's had to learn all of these new things, going from within to without, and like, holy, what is this? Because they're adjusting as well. So they're supported in that, and the mum's supported, and if dad's going, or whichever way it is, mum, dad working, but um, dad's at work, and then grandmother is just there, just holding that space and um, caring for them. And that's true of many cultures, and it's how we all were once upon a time. And so we now, particularly in the West, are just really great at normalizing busyness and go, 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 do, that doing rather than being. So I'm all about the being, and you got to do the do sometimes, but there's also, in order to have the true drive to do what needs to be done, you need to be in a space of being and more stillness, and that for that to be recognized as actually a non-negotiable. Really, it's not there yet, but we're getting there. Yeah.
I really like that. I think it's super important to realize that too, that how you said, when the grandmother comes and holds space, it's like when, if you go back before all the business, it was like the village, like the family came together and
Mm.
helped with the baby and the mom. And, it was like a family thing. It was, a tribe, if you will, that would come together and help. We've gotten so far away from that. And it's just like, tough it out and keep going. It's just,
Yeah.
that's more stress. That's more, you got to get back to, like you said, being instead of doing all the time. So I really like that. You also said that it's a non-negotiable, because I think that that is super important too for you to be. You're just passing over your experience and learning and all the things of actually just being in the moment when you're just going to the next thing, going to the next thing. Of course, there's things to do, but you're right. You need to be in order to do. Don't
Yeah.
just do and forget about the be.
Yeah. That's
Don't
it.
do it
That's
that way.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's exactly it. It's just trying to um, bring that. back into, I feel like we're kind of out of balance in what's normal and what's not right now. And the scales will tip back hopefully into that. And you feel it within the collective, if you like, that coming into balance, or that harmony of that feminine masculine flow. And that just means those two energies of doing and being, it's just bringing that back into more of a balance. And yeah, I think the priorities of what we do and how we do them, they shift, and they morph and they flow. And you realize, and maybe it is through having children, that sometimes the stuff and the things and all the shiny objects, they're not truly as important as you think they are or were. It's the connections and the relationships, and because that's what you take, and that's what your children take from this. It's such a small amount of time that they're with you. My son's 14 now, and my husband's already, I can tell, he's like, I'm trying to hold on. How many summers have we got left with him?
Right.
How long until he's like doesn't even want to hang out with us anymore? And um maybe not long. And so it's really confronting, and like what's he gonna remember? Oh, mum and dad bought me this and bought me this and da da da, or those experiences that and the connections that we had as a family. I sit around the table with the four of us, and we always that's one of our non-negotiables. We always sit down and eat together for our evening meal. Sometimes the other meals that you're often at school or wherever you are, but that evening meal, we every night we light a candle, we say a karakia, which is like a prayer, basically thank you for the food, and and it's a moment of, again, stillness, because as that match has been lit and the candle's been lit, the candle's been lit, there's just that moment of gratitude, and we're all there together, and then you eat and you chat and you laugh and you know moan about the something being cooked too long, whatever, but it's just general family. But it's that time that is non-negotiable for us. It's like conversation and connection, and you can really um, hear each other, and you learn a lot from the little bits you get from your children in those times as well. So it's just honoring those little sacred moments that you have with your children, and because it's that I feel that they'll take with them, those connection times, not the time that he got a new bike or you know new wheels on a scooter, whatever. Like it's about that. So that's what we want to kind of instill in them, is you're part of something, and you are loved and held, and um hopefully they can take that out into the world wherever they go. Be flatting in London somewhere. Come on, flatmates, let's sit around and light a candle and say a karakia.
Yeah, yeah. I love that.
No,
So great. And I love that that's a non-negotiable. That's also something that I do with my family is we have dinner together and we all sit around and talk, because I think it's important to come back and connect with in all the busyness, that you need to take a moment and just be with your family. So that's important for us as well. I love that. I love that. I know that you said before, and because I really want to share this with the listeners, I know that you said before that your story and what you've experienced has brought you to helping other moms. And you also have your own podcast. So I would love for you to share how you help other moms, as well as what your podcast is all about and where they can find you.
thank you. Yeah, my journey went from teaching into uh, basically working more with mums and running kind of like parent groups. We call it a play circle group, and the mums are coming with their little ones, and I'm supporting. Is really about a supportive space for mums to come to and just breathe out and actually be held in that space. So no phones, no technology, just conversation, cup of tea. You can cry on my shoulder. You can, whatever it is, it's just creating that for them. So I do parent education. So as time went on, I went from teaching and I did my counselling training, because I realised I wanted to work more with uh, the things that the mums were coming with were big, some of them. And I thought, I'm actually not fully qualified to give advice if that's what you're seeking, if it's advice, or you actually do need extra help, severe postnatal depression or whatever it may be. So that urged me to want to go and do my counseling training. And I did that. And then it's just kind of morphed into my own business now, Parenting with Soul. And in that, I do intuitive counseling, because the counseling I did was a very holistic based one, very much non-mainstream in every which way. So yeah, it's a holistic based counseling. It's called intuitive counseling. So I offer that, and I do parent mentoring coaching. So the main people I work with are mums, and just supporting them on their journey. And it can be from I've got that teaching background, so it can be from a developmental viewpoint or behavior or that type of thing. But really, the main thing, or the thing I love to do, is just holding space for them, so that and empowering them to be that best version of themselves, and to give them permission to take that pause. And because it's really hard for us to do, and I know, because I am / was that person. So if I had someone to hold my hand and just guide me a little bit, not push me, but just be alongside me, I think it would have been really how I would have loved it. So I'm trying to be the person that I would have loved to have had myself. Um, and I also do Reiki as well. That came along the path, as it does, which I absolutely love. That's one of my other non-negotiable practices I do daily. And yeah, which led me to the podcast, which is called Soulful Mamas, and it's a space where mums can share their stories, their sort of entry into motherhood and navigating any challenges or triumphs or whatever, and where it's taken them, where their path has taken them to now, because it's often very, very different from when you first have your child and you think, I'm just going to go back, I'm going to have my baby, I'm going to go back to my whatever it was, corporate life. Doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it does, but quite often it doesn't. So it's really, really, really interesting hearing everybody's stories, and just being able to create that space and hold that space for them, and for them to truly be heard. No interrupting, no fixing, it's like you're sitting in circle with your fellow mama sisters, and just, yeah, being witnessed. So that's what that's about. And I love it. I love the conversations, and I love sharing them. I kind of like want to shout it from the rooftops. Everybody listen to this one. It's so good.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's so good. It's so good. Yes. We're gonna
Yeah.
we're gonna have all of the details in the show notes too. So if you want to listen to Maria's podcast, or you want to reach out to her or see what she has to offer, to see if you can be, helped by Maria, it'll all be in the show notes as well.
Oh,
I love it.
wonderful.
I love it. So good. So good. So every guest that I have on, because we wear so many hats and we do so many different things, and we have so many amazing traits, characteristics, and things that we have inside of us, I always like to ask my guests if they would share one of their superpowers with the listeners.
Yeah. Well, what comes front of mind is probably being a really good listener and being able to hold space, but sort of even more so hold sacred space. So I I love to do that. And if you can morph in nature with that, because I love Mother Earth, she's my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you, yeah, I can hold space in for people, but within that nature realm is probably something I can do really well with adults, but obviously with children too, just connecting them back into that essence of life, and um, grounding, basically, because it's like taking a big deep breath when you've got your bare feet on the earth, and just like, oh, it's like a reset. So I'm pretty good at helping people to connect with that. Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your stories and all of your gems that you have left. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you, Shauna. It's just been amazing. Thank you so much. I'm loving what you're doing too and everything you're offering. So, yay.
Thank you.